is and this is actually tough, is the crazy weather patterns. Now we all know climate change is just difference in a change in climate patterns. It's a change in temperatures and the climate as we know it. Does not rain as much as we did know. Those subtle changes. Now, even if we sat down here and did nothing for all our lives, the climate is still going to change. So the climate naturally changes by the movement of the sun. We have no control over it. So, but over a long period of time. Remember the whole primary school definition of what is climate, what is weather? Over a long time, there's going to be changes in the climate, whether we do something about it or not. But also climate change is what we call human-induced climate change. Because if it's been raining for some time and the sun's movement, over some time it's going to change, the rain patterns will change. But there's also what we call human-induced climate change. Because of all this industrialization and all those things, it speeds up the rate at which the climate changes. Now, because of that, it also creates very unusual weather patterns. And I want to talk about that for a second, because I think as Africans, as primitive, like they like to call us, as we are, changes in weather cause a lot of disastrous effects. Now, we've had one big effect of climate change has been heavy downpours. Last night, about 70 people recorded dead in Vietnam. I don't know if you've heard about cyclone. What are they calling it? They're calling that one cyclone. Yeah, you know how they have all these names for the cyclones. About 70 people. The death toll could be higher right now. 70 people died in Vietnam last night from the cyclone and landslides and all of that. But that's not very strange to us. We have seen this. I think in 2010, I think that's the first time we recorded the first Bududa landslides. You guys remember that? That was very disastrous, actually. I think a year after that, I remember 2013, going to Kasese, River Namwamba. You guys remember that, the first time River Namwamba broke its banks. Interestingly, it was very spectacular. I went there after, one thing that my introduction didn't capture, that I'm a journalist. I moved there after the river had, settled, gone back to its course, and it was beautiful. I didn't understand that, so my fixer takes me to the place where the river had broken its banks, and there's so many rocks from the mountain that had come down. For me, I thought it was really beautiful, so I was, just seeing how beautiful it was, and then I heard the stories that came after that, and it was very disastrous. A lot of people lost their lives. But guess what? The same thing so it kind of happens on a loop, and the same thing has happened this week again. We've had, at least they said 2 people are feared dead, but this week, the same week, we've had River Namwamba break its banks again, and parts of Kasese municipality are struggling with floods. I don't know if you've read that. It's sad that we actually have to record these patterns. I remember in 2000, during the peak of the lockdown, 2020, maybe 1 or something, and I remember this because I did this story. River Nile broke its banks. Now that's very interesting because that story was not really covered a lot. River Nile, to that, there's farms that have never recovered to this date, today. So you have businesses that were shut down because of River Nile breaking its banks. The River State, I was speaking to a friend from Sudan, I think last week. River State, Sudan has the states, I really can't get my head around them, but they have a place called River State. It did break its banks still, and people were trying hard to make sure the water does not go into their homes. It's very sad when you see those videos. I've not been to Sudan, but my friend was reporting there, and it's very, very sad. Now, beyond, because we love the rain. It's funny because we actually do love the rain, but now when the rain comes, you have to deal with its very, harsh, results that come, come because of the rain. Now, funny thing is that if the rain doesn't come, the other thing that climate change has brought us is is the sun in its harshest form. This year we've had, right now I think they're having a heat wave in the United States, but I want to talk about Africa. This year alone we've had one of the worst heat waves to come to Africa. I don't know if you remember March, this very year in March. I don't know how you guys survived here, but it was South Sudan still had the worst heat wave. They actually had to close schools. They had to shut schools down for about 2 weeks or something. It went to about 45 degrees, maybe even higher, but averagely 45 degrees. Now, who can check the weather right now? It should be about 22, I think. The temperature should be about 22. Can you imagine 45? Can you imagine 50? Some animals just like collapse and die. Some people cannot live. I mean, we're in Kampala. It's 25. It's maybe 28, and we have to put the AC on. Now think about 45. Think about 50. And I mean, as we know it, there's an energy deficit in Africa. So I mean, what do you do? And everyone's trying to use the AC. So it's a whole thing. So we have had a heat wave, and chances are we're going to have, because it gets progressively worse, chances are that next year we might have a worse of heat wave. This same heat wave affected, Southern Africa, Zambia, Malawi, and I want to stick to Malawi for a bit, because Malawi is, I think the whole stretch, Malawi and Zambia, I'm sorry, but sometimes I think they're delivering a curse, because this year they had Cyclone Freddy, which according to stats, I remember sharing with someone in the region at that time, they had about 450 people reported dead this year alone from Cyclone Freddy. But last year they had Cyclone Idai, same thing happened. About 500,000 people were displaced, and of course, I've seen refugee camps. I've seen people in refugee camps because of war. If you've been to the ones that we have, but now people in refugee camps not because of war, but because their homes have been washed away. And we've seen that in North Kivu. We've seen it in not North Kivu. We've seen it in Bulambuli, in Bale. That's very sad, man. It's really, really sad. Now, the one thing that is common all through this stuff is because the climate is changing. Now, that for me is how Americans like to say national security issue. I think for me that's a national security issue. It's actually beyond. Because what happens if Uganda, they say, has the biggest number of refugees because of war, but now if people are coming in because of, who are you going to blame this time? Are you going to say, hey, Sudan, don't bring your refugees here, whatever? Because it's like a national security issue. Unfortunately for us, we have to deal with this stuff, and if we don't, man, it's catch-22, unfortunately for all of us. Now, the other thing that I think, we are affected by climate change, all of us, disproportionately. But as Africa, I think there's some things that that affect us the most, and that's why I'm picking out food, because, hey guys, that's the only thing that we do. We don't produce cars, we produce food. So that's one thing that I think that Africa, is hit. That Africa, gets hit the most. Now, the other thing beyond food is they have told us that beyond agriculture, they say tourism is the second, tourism, what do they call it? Foreign exchange earner. Guess what? Tourism is also highly affected by climate change. And I want to give you the numbers. Well, yesterday was World Tourism Day, I think. That's why I'm picking out tourism, because yesterday was World Tourism Day. There was like a whole thing at Fairway Hotel, which was it was like a whole fun fair. And I was talking to one of my guys, and I'm like, hey, I hope you guys are also talking about the challenges of climate change. Now, when River Nile went awash and caused the destruction it did, some restaurants, again, I said, were shut down. That's a whole tourism business thing happening there. Now, I want to give you some homework. Just check out the Malachite kingfisher. It's a bird. The Malachite kingfisher bird. If you ask me, it's one of the most beautiful birds. It's called the Malachite. There are 3 kingfishers. There are 2, I think. There's the pied kingfisher. It's black and white. It's cool, but it's not as beautiful as the Malachite one. The Malachite kingfisher is a very rare kingfisher. It's found mostly along the Nile. I find it to be very beautiful. But guess what? Because of the variations in climate and all this stuff, the numbers of the Malachite kingfisher are diminishing greatly. Bird watchers come to Uganda. They come to, not just Uganda, they come all around, to see things like this. But what happens if climate change is taking things like this from us? The crowned crane, we call it crested crane in this country, but the crowned crane, I remember when we were kids, we used to just wake up in the morning and just see them fly around. I don't know when I last saw a crowned crane. Now you can see them when you go to Western Uganda and in Rwanda. But this side of the country, you don't see them anymore. That's actually the national bird of the country. The numbers are plummeting, man. They're diminishing. That directly, affects the economy, and it's because of nothing else but climate change. Now, we can talk about climate change for a whole long time, but 3 things come out for me. Again, like I said, climate change is a natural phenomenon as much as is an artificial one. I say artificial to say man-made. Africa has unfortunately taken a huge beating because of climate change, because our agriculture, our livelihood is almost entirely dependent on nature. If it doesn't rain, we don't plant. We're entirely dependent on nature. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate or something, we have not done so much to deserve this kind of, if you think about it, if they say, man-made climate change because of carbon emissions, if you think about it, really, Africa has not, how much carbon emissions does Uganda have vis-a-vis, China and all these big economies? We're literally the least offenders. Unfortunately for us, we are not as prepared as they are against climate change. So any slight change in the climate affects us more than it affects them. That's very unfair. But then again, the climate does not have borders. So what happens in Malaysia will definitely affect people living in whatever it is in Bali. So climate change is a collective responsibility. I think that later on in the conversation we'll discuss our own role in climate action. They said I'm an anti-stop COP activist. Yes, I am, but I'm not going to power activism, conversations on you. I'm just saying that we can have the stop COP conversation if you want, because I think it's a disastrous project. Anyhow, today I'm really looking forward to the conversation because I think that the church, I'm the chapter leader of the Laudato Si movement, and I think that the church, the faith, our faith leaders are very crucial in climate action. And today I'm really looking forward to to learning from everyone about how much faith leaders, by faith leaders I mean all of us, can do to combat climate change. Asanteni sana. Thank you so much. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Round of applause to Mr. Hillary. I Thank you very much. At this moment, wish to continue the discussion, and I don't know, before I maybe go to the next discussant, if by any chance you have maybe a point of supplement or a question in regards to that, we always welcome that as we go on with the discussion. Thank you. At this moment, we are going to have a panel discussion, and this is basically to hear from the different faiths. We have Catholics here, we have the Baha'i here, at least we have somebody who knows about the Muslims or may not be Muslim, and somebody who can give us a hint on what the Buddhists would say, what the Hindus would say. So this is the moment that we are kicking into, where we want to hear the moral imperative of environmental stewardship, according to the Catholic, according to the Muslim, according to the Protestant, and others. So at this moment, allow me start with, since it is the Catholic host, the question.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I wanted to thank Mr. Hillary for the way of presentation. You have a good experience, and you have presented brilliantly. But I was just, I got surprised when you said that. I'm getting disgusted with these conferences of climate change. Why?
Maybe you could say a word quickly. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't mean to come off. What I meant by that is that for a long time, maybe about, I don't know, from the early 2000s, people have always organized climate change conferences, and we've always attended climate change conferences. But as many other issues, it ends up being boardroom talk, so that we talk about all the things, all the statistics, and it doesn't really resonate with exactly what's happening. And that's why I'm happy about this one, because I think that faith leaders work very closely with the people, and that we have the power to actually effect change. Because otherwise, if we just attend climate conferences, okay, now I'm going to talk too much. I'll tell you something. The one major climate event is what they call the Conference of Partners, COP. At COP, the major problem we have, climate change, is because of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. COP is one of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions in the atmosphere. So if we don't translate this talk to real action, I'm fed up of it.
Thank you. And I want to assure you that today we are going to walk the talk, because you have a tree to plant. Okay? And I hope that kick starts. Like I said, this is the time. Before I go on, any other point? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. I think I just want to add something small. I think one of the reasons why we have had so many interactions on climate, the effects and all that, and we don't seem to get what exactly we want to get, is because until we have the conversation down to the real root, we shall not get far. Now, what's the root? The root is we have to look at climate change, the conversation around climate change, from a broader perspective. There is a huge political and economical arm or dimension to it. So until we who are really concerned about the effects try and poke our noses and try to dig up what exactly is within the political and economic dimension. Because, for example, the EACOP, there is a development arm to it. But then, the environmental impact is immense. And I believe part of the heat wave that will hit Uganda is because there has been too much clearing of the vegetation. Not in that area, but the whole strip. Remember, it's a whole strip from Hoima and down to whatever. So the animals, the livelihoods, the agriculture that used to take place there, what is in for it? Giving those people money is not enough. So there's issues there to do with adaptability. Again, so until we get into there, can we have a conversation with those people? Are we ready to compromise and say, okay, you guys want this, but we want this. Can we meet midway? Until that happens, we shall keep talking about the climate change impact, and they will keep pushing because they have the biggest muscle. And what's the biggest muscle? It's the money.
Thank you. You wish to say something? Okay, as we wrap up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good way to put it. Yesterday, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago, the US called, oh my God, I forget his name, but the head of the, there are two worrying facts in Sudan, not South Sudan, the war. So the other guy who is, I'm mixing up the names. So he refused to go for the Geneva talks. The US is trying to put together talks in Geneva, which doesn't make sense. Why Geneva? But anyway, they're trying to put talks there, and one of the guys refused to go. So they're having a back and forth. Today, the US, what's his name? Anton Blinken, whatever, and the UK foreign minister are traveling to meet, I'm mixing up names right now, but the Ukrainian president. Now, there's a lot of politics happening. These guys, it will even take 2 or 3 weeks for them to come up to one thing. But a kid in Bahel, Gazelle, or whatever, does not have that time. And that's why I'm saying that, because, the logistics have to happen on the upper side. But for someone on the ground, it's very different. And that's for us to deal with. And since we are religious leaders, we have an upper hand over the political wing. Asante.
Thank you. Any more before I can go to the other side? Dear colleagues, I'm happy that the discussion is warming up, and I'm very, very happy. At this moment, because of some emergencies, I'm going to request Father Sita is going to share with us, I would call it the moral imperative from the Catholic point of view, and then we'll keep the discussion going on. Father, you're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, I'm Father Emmanuel Sita, but from yesterday I got this serious flu, so I'm very much afraid of how I'm going to be able to get on. And I'm Director of Justice and Peace, Kampala, Archdiocese. So I'm happy for the previous presenters for such concerned. I see that you are generally young people. You're the ones who are around. Someone is looking at me and was wondering, do you think I am that young? But generally, you are the young people, and if it is taken up by the young people, it is very, very much encouraging, because it's a topic that from the offset doesn't seem to be very captivating. But if And for young people, things must be of action and quick results. So sometimes when we talk about climate and what we need to do, and it looks at where you have to plant a tree and vegetation which you are not going to harvest any time soon, you see that there is a little reluctance. And as we are young, we are not easily drawn into that. But continually, if we continue to talk about it, and of course, if you yourselves as young, you are living examples and talk about this, I'm sure it can be taking course, and I think something will be coming out. Hillary, when he was speaking, said he's getting tired. and that one was quite interesting. But I would want to not to see him getting tired, because if you get tired to work for environment, you're getting tired to live. It's like you want to say, I'm tired of being here. Let all of us go, and that should be the end. But I think we should not be so tired. And I think his point was on, because he does not seem to see things actually happening. But it's always good that there is this conversation, there is this talking. It will not totally die away. There are components, there are aspects of life that sometimes tend to drag. If there is any process of, if there is any action, especially now in regard to environment. But I think here in most of our countries, there are many issues that simply hinder any progress in such areas. And we need to cultivate ways that touch on society right from the low stages of our growth. That even here, people begin to realize that everything around us, and especially to know that God who created all of us, created a very beautiful earth. Oh, he created a very, very beautiful environment, including ourselves. And all that beautiful environment is in support of us, whom he called at the crown. We are at the summit of creation. I think you believe me that in the 6 days God took to create the world. Of course, you are not going to question whether that really took place in 6 days. It could have taken also place in just a day, and everything was there. But of course, that must come to our understanding. Human beings, we are limited. We need to grasp things in the way we are existing. We live in time and space, so things need to be set in what we can easily understand. But I think if we go back to the story of our creation, which we know that we are in time, so it must have started. Things started. And most of you must be, because if you are people who are interested in the environment, you definitely see that for creation, which is so much in order, that order in itself, there must be some superior intelligence or power that brought it forth. And we know purposely to be able to serve man. The order in creation in itself is so great a marvel. Sometimes I look at smaller and much smaller insects, and I don't want to go to those that we cannot see with our naked eye, but let us go to the mosquito. The mosquito which bites us sometimes. And sometimes I look at a mosquito, and then I say, this mosquito has also a system which has a heart, which has the entrance. It has everything. It looks very tiny, but it's so well created, systematic, and it has its role. So there is the order in creation, and it not just happened, but essentially meant that it helps us human beings to reflect deeper and know that there is a very, very high intelligence that was behind all this, and which intelligence did not stop at that, but it is continuing up to today. In our Archdiocese of Kampala, in this month of September, we are very, very busy because we set this to be a peace month. September Peace Month. We tried to understand that peace is a gift that every one of us desire. And for us to exist without peace, and peace can be emotional, can be psychological. We can lack peace just because within ourselves things are not going well. We can also lack peace because on a relational level, me with the other people, things are not working well. But there is also a third level where we can also lack peace because God, in the vertical line, we are not in good terms with what God wants us to do. You remember the story of Adam and Eve. God had created them in a beautiful paradise. But then, all of a sudden, then they wanted to take up things that God, accordingly, had refused them. But what happens? That paradise, which had been given to them, things begin to crumble, and the peace was no more. First of all, inside each one of them, you can remember how much they were disturbed after they had failed, each one individually, and the blame started there. And then it went to their vertical relationship with the man and the woman, the blaming. Until then, God also, they realized that God is looking out for them. God calls. So usually that is the situation we get into if peace is taken away. And of course, if there is no peace with our God, then we cannot in any way be safe. But in all cases, we see that the biggest cause for lack of peace is the sin. Sin is the cause for all our lack of peace, because you realize that things are not getting. But essentially because we look at this beauty of what God has created for us. So, this Peace Month, we are trying to observe a number of things. And when you look at the world today, you see that there is generally no peace. Every one country has problems with the other. And the worst of all, we are not only at lack of peace, but there are lives that are being destroyed. Fellow human beings. And the best of all, creation. You know, we are talking of environment and say, around us, all the trees are going to be finished. Yes. And the forests are going to be finished. The air is also so terribly polluted. Those are killing us, one after the other, slowly. But we also forget that the human person is very, very fast being destroyed. And this should be the highest of all. If anything, we can afford to have trees. But of course, we know that as a system, they end up in also killing the human person. But then there is this direct destruction. That's why in this month, the Pope has given us artificial intelligence. You are hearing a lot about artificial intelligence in these days. And this seemed to, he has every New Year's, he has a message for the world on peace. Every New Year's, the Pope sends out a message, of course looking out that we can have a peaceful year, and thereafter people can live in a good way. So this year, 2024, and on New Year's, Pope gave that message, which has the title, Intelligence, Artificial Intelligence and Peace, or but in relation to peace. But we can break this artificial intelligence down further to say it's simply science and technology. And we have seen immensely how science has actually improved the looking of this earth or our world. There is a greater improvement. I would have felt fearful sometime that man, in some time I think we didn't have high scrapers, buildings, and a lot of things that have been invented today happen to be here on earth. At one time I was fearing and thinking that maybe the Mother Earth is going to get too heavy and will give way, because every time there are construction, but this construction come from just what was already there. But of course, human beings, we are also, we are a very important entity in as far as even the magnetic attraction of our planet with the rest of the world. But I think God in his wisdom could not have created a world that will get too heavy so that at one time maybe it will give way. But I think that is not where to look, but of course finishing off the creation and the vegetation. So we have chosen this month, and we hold activities like this one, dialogue, and you have done very well to invite all our faiths, different faiths. This is a capital because there are things we look at as should be of our whole concern. Things, what we don't treasure here are commonly good things here. Everything for us all, we tend to not care and not concerned. And of course, this is tending to make a human person only going after oneself. And if you want to say anything, that one is very deep in us Ugandans. That is very deep. We are so much after ourselves. And that is one of the principles the Catholic Church stresses. We have 10 principles that are essential, but that one is number 3, common good. The words seem to be just simple, common and good, but you will see that we don't care so much about things we own as a community, but we are educated right from young. If you see we are facing disasters of the swamps and what happened in this place in Nansana, Chitezi, there is also Chitezi, that's another lot. There is also evacuation of people that took place in Nansana. First of all, you wonder why these people were Lubiji got caught up in there. But you see, it all starts from everyone trying to look for himself. And eventually, this thing comes up. And of course, if people are going to come in this way, then who allows them? There is also something that is given. So in any way, in the end, something begins to swell up, and eventually it becomes, it collapses, and we suffer. And then the blame seems to be going all over, but essentially because people have not even told, have been not made to understand that we must be already, we need to learn this already from at lower stages. And for me, I think, since we should not get tired of talking about this, we should simply advocate for better systems in our countries, in our faith. We have a big problem of good governance. We cannot say we have good governance. And this cuts across to all smaller communities, family. How much do you hear of domestic violence? And that is a very much smaller community, unit. But then you will find that there are problems every time. If you cannot govern your home, just at the smallest, what is going to happen when you are given a village? And what is going to happen when you are, and has it happened to you that we are now the ones crusading this idea of environment and so on, but you find that in our own units, our own organization and communities, because I am for justice and peace, there is a lot of injustice beginning from just where we work. You work, where you work. And sometimes we can keep quiet about it and they move out in the interest of taking it to others. But even where we are coming from, how is it where we are coming from? Because there has not been that learn and learning, so it becomes a very big problem, but which we should not give up. We should continue these talks. Maybe sometime we should be able to. So in justice and peace, we are handling this principle of care for creation, care for God's creation, and it is from that we go out. And you must know that in care for God's creation, man is number one. So if that one is in principle number 9, principle number 1 has the life and the human dignity. essentially this bring us to not to look on, but to come out and be able to protect and promote the dignity of what? Man. Because everything else which was created by God and for purposes of serving man, if it is neglected, what happens? Life will go. The dignity of humanity will not be there anymore. In Uganda today, are we so much concerned about human dignity? Sometimes you can be rolling into maybe a small town, all of a sudden somebody rides at a terrific speed, and you see that probably the children that were crossing are just going to be crushed. But then you hear around some people cheering, yeah, kill that. Such words. They are terrible words. But how much do we also react or respond? Try to go into that and say, hey, you hear that? These days, do we care? This is what is going on. So there is a lot of sensitization, awareness raising that we need to do. And I think that is very, very much essential. But by, first of all, we being the first ones, every time we should be the first ones. In justice and peace, we think that as soon as a person moves out of his home, out of that doormat, out of here, we begin to violate justice. We begin to abuse justice. We common good issues. I am looking at, even where you are, have you cared to have the path or the road that leads to your place, and to know that it belongs to all those people who use it, and that is not only mine, but what do? We extend our houses, our compounds, and it might be that is your plot, part of your plot. But are we thinking about people who need to use this road, that I better create something smooth for them? Or we are going to be the ones to bring a terrible metal, and it will be very sharp at the edge as it faces where people come from, so that you scare them off. That is all against life. So essentially, there are very deep things that need to be taken into account, because people must be made to understand that the environment is our very selves. Environment is also a gifted, it's a gift that we have received from our God. So I wasn't aware that I was going to be able to say something in this way. I can only touch here and there, and I don't want to keep so long, but I think this is a very good way we have started, and I am thinking that don't lose the spirit. Don't we only every time come up with what shall we do now from here? How best are we going to be able to let people know that environment and care for creation is one of our, but of course that everywhere, that's the biggest wealth we can have, because it is part of us. So those who may be interested, what do we do in this month? So we all usually have 4 major events. First of all, in order to have peace, we know that peace from the very beginning came from God. God is the giver of peace. Because when he created man, he put him in a paradise. And when things did not go well on the side of man, he lost that peace. I was talking of that in Genesis 3 when man's fall. So God promised a Messiah, Christ, and most of the prophets reported about that. God promised him a Messiah and said, I will restore you into that peace. So the Messiah was awaited for, and finally he was able to come. And you know, when he comes, he was awaited for as a Prince of Peace. We dwell a lot about that around Christmas. And he finally, when he comes, he speaks of himself as one who has come so that people can have the fullness, a restoration of whatever seemed to be taking away their peace, that it can be restored. That's why he talked of restoring eyesight, the deaf. He spoke of himself as the Lord has anointed me and has sent me to bring good news. So good news, when there is good news, it is a sign for peace, which we look for. So there is a restoration. And you know, finally, when Jesus had to give the last blow to whatever was taking away peace, he won death. And that's the resurrection. The most obvious greeting Jesus would give, peace be with you, peace be with you. So sort of, we have this peace, and he let it now in our own hands. And we see that in order to give peace, in order to give others peace, we have to speak against injustices. Injustices that take place around us. Some are not direct. So that is a task, and that is the kind of awareness we are making to all our people. Speak against. I don't know how many of us speak about injustices that we see from the time you started, as you came here. You might have come across so many injustices. Are we speaking against them? And some, we don't need to look for them, just around us. You might be remembering, there was a small shot that was running on WhatsApp. And you remember people were in a kind of building, and somebody was a lecturer. And when he came in, he just pointed at one of them and said, you in a blue coat, please get out of the class. The girl wondered what could have happened. The lecturer has come and he says, you in a black shirt. Now I am pointing to you. Get out. Of course, in the end, this lady had to leave the class and go out, but everybody else were amazed and just looking on. Then, after she had gone out, somebody asked, what did you say about what has happened? Then everybody started not knowing what to say. And he had put, is that just, I think in the answers, one of the answers, somebody said, maybe he talked about justice. And he said, yeah, what about it? We don't know what really happened, why our friend had to go out. And finally, in the end, the man said exactly, why did you not say anything? Because everyone seemed to just close himself and said, they have not addressed me. I am safe. We tend to play it safe wherever we are. And that is very common, even on our roads. You want to pass quickly so that you are not caught up in the jam. And eventually, so why did you not say anything? So to say anything, we keep quiet a lot about some of such issues. Second, when we have spoken, it is not only speaking, but we must be seen. We ourselves, there must be that we are doing justice. We are living justly. The other one, which could be easier. Maybe we can speak against injustice because we believe not many people know about us. But suppose people know about us. The one person who went to the village meeting and they were elections that were coming up, and he was campaigning to be elected. And when the campaigns came, in the ballot box, there was only one vote, and this one was his own. But even the children and the mother from home did not give a vote. Imagine your own family not giving you a vote, essentially because at home you are talking of making things for people, but they say, how is he going to be able to do this when at home we don't see anything? So we have to be seen, living just in our own lives. And thirdly, we said peace is something that God is the giver. And of course, he's the one who gives us the courage. You know, Jesus prayed, much as he was from God and was God, had to pray every time to be able to walk that, to be able to restore peace for us. So we have also to pray. And of course, in which ways? Which ways we should be able to ask and bring about and work for peace and ourselves to be, because it calls for a sacrifice. Injustices are going on, we must be able to step there. So I would want to stop at this, but I will go back because of the preparations we are in, but we do such things. And I was very much interested in coming to this conference to be able to see, because hopefully it is going to be organized every year, and it can be our opportunity also to make some input, but also to share, especially from our faith. Every time we meet, we do a number of activities, and we give, for instance, a tree to each of the representatives of the various faiths as a name of faith, that let us do this together. The Archbishop, for instance, in Nasana, on second, gave trees to all people from all walks of life. And we are going to have Benedicto Chiwanuka Memorial Lecture on the 24th, again this month. These are activities that we do within this month. It will be at Popo at 2 p.m. That is also because it begins with the thinking justly, in order to be able to do whatever we do. Environment, there is that Pope speaks of environmental justice. In his, I'm happy that people are talking about Laudato Si. Laudato Si. You know, that is Latin. Praise God. In Laudato, God be praised. Let him be praised. When you look at creation, immediately you feel attended the way. God must be praised. Creation. And when you look at your fellow human beings, it is the Sabbath who used to say, turn around and look at your neighbor. Just look at your neighbor. You know, we fear also to do that. We fear when they tell you, look at your neighbor. And he used to say, you see how beautiful your neighbor is, but also, and some people look there once and say, oh. We fear to believe that. But the beauty is not so much in the features and eyes, but that is an image. That is in God's image. Okay, we will be sharing. I have been a little long because I've been touching here and there. But thank you very much. If I have to go, you will allow me at some point, because I have to catch up with the preparation we still have. And we have a closure. It is going to be in Entebbe. Entebbe is also going to be, you are invited, by the way. And our concern also goes to refugees and migrants. So thank you very much for offer, and thank you for being patient with my here and there, and of course, we will be able to hear from each other. Thank you.
Round of applause for Father Sita. Thank you very much, Father, for sharing with us. Father has hinted on Laudato Si, and those who may not have got a chance to see, this is the booklet or the encyclical. Encyclical for us, the Catholics, is the official, say, letter written to us by the Pope. So we call it encyclical. The Laudato Si encyclical letter of the Holy Father Francis on care for our common home. The Pope calls the earth our common home. And this is another copy I have. It is called Laudato Si Made Simple. Just for a little kind of breakdown. And I want to just read one small quotation which is from the beginning that says that it is Laudato Si mi Signore, meaning that praise be to you, my Lord. So in the opening sentences, the Pope says that, quoting from St. Francis of Assisi, our Mother Earth and all the things that we see, when we look at, right now it is shining, isn't it? So we'll say that that sun is your sister, is your brother. The moon is your sister, is your brother. So everything that you see on this beautiful planet is your sister and is your what? Is your brother. So the way you would take care of your brother, the way you take care of your sister, that is the same way we have to make sure we take care of the earth and the climate, of course. I would give a chance to one or two people before I call on the Baha'i to share with us. Any 2 or 3 supplements, points to note here and there from what Father shared. I start here.
Father Sita, thank you very much for the input. You have touched many areas, and we have benefited a lot. In that very document, the encyclical letter of Pope Francis about care for our common home, he emphasized and complained about consumerism and irresponsible economic development. This is happening in our country, and there are so many messes, and we don't hold our leaders responsible for the mess. About 3 or 4 years ago, the fish died. Fish died in the lake in the big numbers. And it was alleged that there was I don't know, the Japanese doing their experiences there in the lake, and there was so much temperature, and the fish died in huge numbers. We have not taken our government to court to account for that mess. We are silent, as the Father has said. In the forests, we have NFA, National Forest Authority. They are there to guard forest on our behalf. But the forests are cleared off. They are no more. And we don't hold our government responsible for that mess. The Chitez incident would have been even on the street demonstrating about the deaths which were carried at Chitez a month ago. Yes, because 10 years ago, the Europeans came, the Bazungu, and they wanted to make the best use of that garbage, to make something productive from the garbage. And the bosses there and the KCC asked for a bribe before they can give them that contract. That is being senseless and irresponsible. And the Bazungu warned us that if we don't clear this garbage, people are going to get sick and they will eventually die. And some people allege that there are some Chinese who were there making demonstrations there and they might have planted a bomb there. These are rumors, but who is investigating about that? The government should be accountable. Because the Chinese, they didn't go there by themselves. They were allowed. And things are happening. It is disastrous. So, care for, that's consumerism and the responsible economic development. The landslides, so many things are happening. My friend here, the Baha'i, has given me this booklet. There's a storied house. I don't know how many floors there here. But it is they have planted there trees. The buildings looks like a tree. So we need that way of doing things so that we can also adapt to such. Father, I'm happy you were the director of Justice and Peace. But we need, many times I ask myself, because you see, we have many parishes, especially in the Kampala Archdiocese, and the building is going on. When you see buildings going on, it means they are cutting trees to make roofs. Trees are being cut at a great speed. But I have not heard any priest telling people, encouraging them to grow trees in their homes. You have mentioned the Archbishop, he gave out trees to plant. But how many parishes are doing that? Because sometimes you don't need to give people money. You only need to touch a microphone and say, I need you people, every family, to grow trees. Every now and then we bury people. You see a person in a coffin made of woods. So if you go to bury, why don't you leave that place when you have planted a tree? At least one. So we are just passive. We let things go, and our Mother Earth is being destroyed. So I thank Mr. Nicholas for having called us this meeting to sensitize us, and I think let us do our best to see that we promote the planting of trees. In my small plot, I wanted to walk the talk, and I have at least 3 trees there. For having known the usefulness of trees, I planted. And I would wish each one of us to do the same. Because sometimes we may tell others to do this, but what have you done in your home? We need to start from our home. Okay? That's what, because I'm a Franciscan, and St. Francis is a saint of ecology. So all creatures are his friends. One time he was going to be operated. And during that time, his time, operating someone who is suffering from eyes, they were using fire in a crude way. But St. Francis, because he was blind, he told the brother fire, please don't harm me, brother fire. I fear you don't harm me. And the operation went on smoothly without brother fire harming brother St. Francis. So that's the experience. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I called Nicholas at around 4 in the morning. I had forgotten this conference, and I made, I called a meeting somewhere. It is about land, and it was supposed to be at 10. Then when I called Nicholas, I said, no, the meeting is today, the conference is today. So I was forced to change the time. I told my friends, let us meet at least at 1 o'clock, and they accepted me. So, and I would like to end this meeting, but that's the environment, and you will forgive me. I'm still here to listen to some views so that you can work together. Thank you very much.
We had one more here.
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. I want to thank Father for the insight he has given us when he was speaking about justice and peace and how it really affects our lives. I remember I was talking to my colleagues and a sister I'm working with, and I was saying that most of our problems arise from our mindset of I don't care. It does not concern me. That lack of empathy we have as individuals, that even when you see recently after the Chitezi incident, that the home clean people who are taking people's rubbish had some delays and all that. And I saw video clips of people getting rubbish and pouring it in feeder roads. Those, like, you know how people build like fences, and there's a road that takes people to their homes, and people are dumping rubbish. You pass through town, and there are heaps of rubbish, and you wonder, do these people pour it when people have all gone out of town? Because I know people don't sleep. So there are people who really dirty our places, throw rubbish, and people are seeing, but because they don't care, those things will continue happening in our lives. So mostly we can build a system. I think government has a lot of laws and all those things that they're putting, but the mindset of people that we are working with, and especially us who work in host communities, people come with all sorts of mindsets. You really don't know where people come from, especially the refugees that we have, people who are forced to be displaced from other areas. They come with all sorts of mannerism. So I think we should encourage ourselves to, initiatives should be all about mindset change. And it's something that is so rooted in us. I don't know how we are going to do it. The government may come up with policies and all those, but if people are not really changed psychologically, we will still have these conferences year in, year out, 50 years in, 100 years in, and things are not changing. So yes, that's my point. Thank you.
Can I say something?
We can keep on.
Okay.
But I think let's refer a little bit to mindset. Can't we do anything about mindset? Is there good education in the country? Is there good governance? Such things. Those are areas that are concerns of the government, our governments, our churches, but also with the individual. So they are go hand in hand. Because if you say mindset, where does it begin? How does it? So do we have in church? Are we still caring about families and homes? In schools, are we still concerned? So as it concerns the bigger community, it concerns also the individual. They may put schools, because we're all faith to have schools where we can do education. And then no faith teaches bad education. But it's good upbringing, but it's basic from our home. It will tend to take children always to look for good education to make them run an airplane, or become an engineer, or a doctor, and you forget that essentially your schools have been set there so the children can be well formed and the minds can. So individual, but also the government, our churches are also there to play. And I think there are many priests who are talking out now today about this, especially from the time of Laudato. Because this is something that we must say. walk the talk. Walk the talk. And you challenge yourself. The times that you came from home, how many persons did I find who needed some attention? It doesn't mean that you're sorrow, but inform on an issue, inform just another person who may be concerned. But you don't simply look at an injustice and walk away. This is what you can Thank you very much. I beg to, because I can't go 1:30. I have some program at Radio Sapientia. Very committed, but I will be linking to here. So,
Thank you, Father.
Nicholas Shaw coming up. I think he's coming.
Thank you very much, Father, for your time, for your sharing. Okay. You can hear from here and then...
Thank you, everyone, and I'm glad to be here. I just want to add on what everyone was saying, because everyone is focusing on the Chite's issue, and I think we are all pointing fingers, but as everyone said, individual responsibility. And when we talk about individual responsibility, sometimes people are saying, like, if there was an oppressor and you're neutral, we have a tendency of being indifferent. And also, charity begins at home. Because when you focus on the Chite's really issue, in our homes, how many of us have 2 different garbage cans? Because we have to focus on the issue of recycling, and also this same conversation we are having about climate change. If we can take that in school, so at least we start working with the next generation. Because if you look, he was referring that we have young people here, but do we take these discussions of climate change in schools, or we are just focusing on the academic aspects of life? And the individual responsibility is really an issue here. Instead of pointing fingers at the government here and there, we all have to play our part, especially in our homes. So when we are raising our children, we are grooming them to know that, okay, when you're putting garbage, you have different cans, where you put the plastics and the degradable. So when they are taking the garbage, the degradable can go into the ground, then the recycling aspect, it can be used for other aspects of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This always has to start with us, like you say. I want to demonstrate this example. Please come and help here. I want to demonstrate this example, a live example, since we are live. Just help me with the microphone. Most often, when we are given a bottle of water, most of us will do like this. And then we'll remove this. After removing, what happens next? We throw down. But I want to show the world that you can actually fold it like this. And fold it. And then push it through here. Okay? So that by the time you dispose of this, there's no any littering that has happened here. Thank you. Okay, a quick one, because I would wish that we are not late for lunch and would catch up with time. And before he shares, Father talked of one good point, not one, but of course many, I pick one. Father noted that there is what we call the common good. And I want to address this common good from the bioethic point of view. In bioethics, we say that common good is a principle, and it calls for 4 things. The first it calls for us is to collaborate. When we collaborate as different faiths, for example now, then we are driving towards the common good, be it whether planting a tree or whatever it is. So that collaboration is part of the element for us we refer to as for the common, to achieve the common good. Secondly, after the collaboration, we have to cooperate. We collaborate and then we cooperate. Bring your small, I normally use this example. Those black ants, when they want to carry a certain piece of food, they put together their small legs. So they do cooperate. And then they carry that to their preferred destination. And of course, through that cooperation with them, you see, they're already doing some kind of communication, as they are doing the collaboration, as they are doing the cooperation, they are doing some kind of what? Communication within them. And then lastly, of course, coordination. You have to coordinate the different parties, the different spheres, to be able to achieve the common good. So for us bioethics, that's how we look at common good. We call it a principle that guides us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank my sister for the input, for the ideas. But you see, in life we have parents in the family. The parents are supposed to guide the children how to behave, to teach them discipline. But this time it is the other way around. The children start at school, they educate them, but the parents don't know what to do with the disposing garbage. At the same time, the government is our mother. If the government is sensitive about disposing garbage, then that's a big problem. Because you see, after that incident happened, they are now looking somewhere else to take the garbage. This is the time to sacrifice huge millions of money to do the recycling you are talking about. But they are searching other areas to do the same. And they tell people, no, it will be a short time, about 2 years, we shall have found a solution. It will not be there. People will have forgotten. So, we need to kweberamu Muganda agamba nti ennyonyi enkulu yeeyigiriza ente okubuuka. Gavumenti etuyigiriza ekyokukola. Abazadde nabo bayigiriza abaana baabwe nga bitandikira mu maka, embeera ejja kutereera.
Thank you. I hope you please allow me and we continue walking the talk. And I request Mr. Emmanuel to share with us what the Baha'i would say about the moral imperative on environmental stewardship. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so very much. Because I've been sitting for a long time, I prefer to stand and maybe also walk around a little bit. I'm exceedingly honored to be with you here today and to share with you a few insights on the theme of the day, our Interfaith Conference on Climate and the Environment. And I'll focus more on the statement here. I hope you all have your copies. Some around there, you can get them. The Baha'i Faith statement on the environment, and also a little bit about this Baha'i ecology. And here we have a selection from the many teachings in the Baha'i faith that speak directly to the topic that we have today. When we received this invitation, our Office of External Affairs looked through the wealth of information, of materials that are available, and chose those that speak directly to this. And they sent me a few of these copies and asked me to come and have this honor to present the statement. But Emmanuel, I'm from Jinja, Edinda yempangalira, Busoga yenakulira, so Lusoga ndwidi ayenga tuli banole. And I'm a farmer, and whatever I talked about actually described exactly what is happening and the impact of climate change on the life of the farmer and how the farmer in the village is the most affected. Because for a farmer, like he said, when a crop does not do well this season, then you know you won't have the money to buy food and your children will starve. One interesting thing he talked about was the diversity of the food that we have, the food basket shrinking. You know, those early days we had very many kinds of foodstuffs. But even today in the village, you only find someone has posho alone, and that is what they are having for their meal. Maybe rice, maybe cassava, maybe potatoes. And in my usual activities, I'm also working with a Baha'i-inspired organization that works in Jinja, Kamuli, and Wikwe districts. And one of the key aspects that we deal with in our interactions with the wider community is the issue of the environment. So we have environmental programs in our communities, others about agriculture, others about education, others about health. But all these resonate well with today's theme that we are going to talk about. And I should say that while I want to stick on this statement, I also here and there bring in my own examples, my own views. And please take them for what they are, because my personal views are mine and don't represent the ideas of the Baha'i faith. The ideas of the Baha'i faith are those ones that are in this document. So our opening statement here, they say this statement was issued by the Office of External, issued by the Baha'i Office of the Environment on behalf of the Baha'i International Community. So we have a specific office for that talks about the environment, and it shares these ideas with the international community. So conversations like this are happening at the UN level, at the national level, at the village level, in our activities that we do in the communities. And the opening statement says that in this age of transition towards a society protection of the environment and conservation of the Earth's resources represent an enormously complex challenge. The rapid progress in science and technology that has united the world physically has also greatly accelerated destruction of the biological diversity and the rich natural heritage with which the planet has been endowed. Material civilization driven by the dogmas of consumerism and aggressive individualism and disoriented by the weakening of moral standards and spiritual values has been carried to excesses. Only a comprehensive vision of a global society supported by universal values and principles can inspire individuals to take responsibility for the long-term care and protection of the natural environment. Baha'is find such a world-embracing vision and system of values in the teachings of Baha'u'llah, which herald an era of planetary justice, prosperity, and unity. One of the most important starting points is for us to acknowledge that we are in this process of transition. You know, we can talk about human beings and see the path that we have trodden since we came into existence. When we were in the Garden of Eden, for example, and we were living simply by hunting and gathering, we did not talk about these issues we are talking about today. Not so. Because everything was there, everything was perfect. But there is something within us, the human beings, and that is because of the way we were created. That's something that makes us want to progress and prosper all the time and advance. And then we see that the advancements we have taken, mainly, say, if you think about 200 years before now in Uganda, everywhere was covered with what? Forest. Recently, I saw a very interesting photo that showed Kampala around 1900, when people were walking to go to Lukuli where the king was. And I saw a very beautiful city that had very many trees, very many swamps, and everywhere, and the population was small. And then if you compare it with the Kampala of today, all the swamps that existed and everything was actually what? Destroyed. Because we are progressing. Most of us started to leave our villages and come to the city. Now we're talking about what is the challenge? Where is the challenge coming from? We are progressing, and during this process of progressing and the technologies that we have, we are putting a lot of pressure on the natural resources. Think about just one thing like this. If we say that all people should stop using charcoal, how many people will starve in Uganda? How many? Very, very many. Okay. So then, we cannot say that solutions to environmental challenges will be, let's ban the use of what? Charcoal, for example. If you ban that, you know that a human being is going to do what? To die, to suffer, because they won't have a means to fuel their households, to cook the food that they so desire to eat and sustain themselves. That can't be a solution. Okay? Now if we say cars are the problem, and we say, okay, let's ban all cars. Let's have maybe only electric cars. But even the electric cars, you need cobalt, you need lithium. And for you to get that, you have to go to the forests of Konge and destroy plantations and mine and get the cobalt and the lithium that you need to create your batteries that will run the cars. Okay? So, should we say that because we are advancing like that, we are destroying our environment in such ways? The solutions we should come up with are those ones that should take us back to hunting and gathering, to riding horses, okay? To living in the forests, because that is the most healthy environment we can have. No, it can't be that. We are saying here that what has happened is that the rapid progress in science and technology has actually united everyone in the world. Today, we can travel from here to everywhere you want in the world in just a day. But the resources you're actually using to harness the natural forces, the energies that the world can provide, the earth can provide, has also some negative what? Impact. And one thing here is that most of the material development, because we have had too much of material advancement, is driven by dogmas of consumerism. You know, when you're talking about development today, say in Uganda, you're going to ask about your GDP, your gross domestic product, okay? And you also ask yourself that, oh, if you want to know a rich country, you have to know how much money is someone spending in a day, okay? So if you're spending, say, less than $2 in a day, you're now very poor. And it has to be calculated in monetary terms. At what point did prosperity, the development, start to become measured in terms of the amount of money that someone is able to spend? So it means you're sending people and telling them that for you to stand out as a developed nation, you should encourage your people to consume a lot. Consume even what they are not, more than what they need, for example. You know, when consumerism comes to its excesses, goes to its excesses, because of the weakening moral standards, then we don't care about our neighbors. We don't care about other people. And we're only interested in what will satisfy our whims and desires. And then, from that you realize that someone will decide to buy as many clothes as possible when others are going naked. And then those ones that become old will have to find their way into the garbage. Not so? Yet, if they had a dress and it is torn, and that dress can be what? They can mend that dress. Ogitwala ne bagikuba ki? Ekiraka. N'osigala ng'okola ki? Olina ekiteeteeyi kye ekirungi. No surviving. No one talks about that. Okay? When we go to the supermarket, for example, to shop, my good friend said here that, you know, in Kampala, everything is about money, for example. They have the money to go and buy what they will do what? They will eat. Okay? Now, when you go to shop, you're going to shop excessively. Kubanga olina okuddayo eka n'akaveera nga kakola ki? Kazitowa. Even what you're not going to do what? To consume. Have you ever asked yourself how much food is wasted in the market? And where does it come from? Ewaife budondo balima eiva. Eiva lino we balirima lidda ku mukatale kwamba kooti. Balivuga balireetawa e Kampala. Bwe lituuka eyo wajena kasero erindi likola ki? Livunda n'okuvunda nga tibakoze eki? Tibaleguze. Some of the vegetables that you see in Nakasero market is what you're going to find in a landfill somewhere. Why? Because too much of it was brought to the city, yet people in the village are not doing what? Are not having it. So there is some bit of injustice here, some bit of consumerism that is happening everywhere. If we look at the statement also says, the last paragraph there of that first statement, that only a comprehensive vision of a global society supported by universal values and principles can inspire individuals to take responsibilities for long-term care and protection of the natural environment. And Baha'is find such a world-embracing vision in a system of values in the teachings of Baha'u'llah, which is the herald of planetary justice, prosperity, and unity. Justice, prosperity, and unity are central to this idea we are talking about. Climate and the environment. If those are not there, we are going to find serious challenges. Now, the next part is going to be talking about some of the Baha'i teachings on the issue we are talking about, for example, on conservation and sustainable development. So here we see that Baha'u'llah enjoins his followers to develop a sense of world citizenship and a commitment to stewardship of the earth. We are stewards of the earth, meaning we have to take care of the earth. It was given to us as a gift, right? And it is our responsibility to care for what was given to us. His writings are imbued with a deep respect for the natural world and for the interconnectedness of all things. Ecologists can understand this very well. Interconnectedness of all what? Things. They emphasize that the fruits of God's love and obedience to his commandments are dignity, nobility, a sense of worth. From these attributes emerge a natural inclination to treat one another with love, compassion, and a willingness to sacrifice for the betterment of society. Baha'u'llah also teaches moderation, a commitment to justice and detachment from the things of this world. Spiritual discipline, which enable individuals to contribute to the establishment of a prosperous and united world civilization. The broad pattern of such a civilization and the principle on which it should be based are set in Baha'u'llah's revelation, a revelation that offers hope and to a dispirited humanity and the promise of a truly that it is truly possible both to meet the needs of the present and future generation and to build a sound foundation for social and economic progress and development. The inspiration of the vision, the inspiration and the vision for this civilization are captured in Baha'u'llah's words: "The earth is but one country and mankind its citizens." So, Baha'is believe that the earth is one country and mankind its citizens. And we talked about the idea there of interconnectedness. What we do here in Uganda influences and affects what happens somewhere very far in a small country like Sao Tome and Principe, for example. Okay? If we destroy our environment here, let's take one example. And those who study ecology can actually understand that well. If we do one thing, say we dump our wastes in one of the wetlands, okay? And the rains will come and wash that waste into Lake Victoria, right? We know that we are adding substances to our Lake Victoria that are not supposed to be there. And once that happens, the organisms that are there, the fish and the water and the like, are also going to be what? Affected. Now Lake Victoria is not for only Uganda. It is surrounded by Uganda, Tanzania, and what? And Kenya. But we also have a river that flows through what? Through the Nile, through Africa, River Nile. It goes all the way to Egypt, through all the countries that are around there. So we are affecting everyone along the way because this water has been polluted. We are in Uganda. And this water is being connected to the ocean, which ocean now is a link to all the oceans of the world. So there is that interconnectedness. If we know that the world is one country, the earth is one country, and mankind is its citizens, and we know there is interconnectedness, then we know. We try to temper our whims and desires and learn to do things in the right way without trying to harm what? Your neighbor. So, some of the principles, among the principles guiding the Baha'i approach to conservation and sustainable development, the following are of particular importance. Nature reflects the qualities and attributes of God and should therefore be greatly respected and cherished. Nature does what? Reflects the attributes of God. First of all, when we pray in the Lord's Prayer and ask God to give us our daily bread, okay? Where is this bread going to come from? From nature, not so? So in nature we see the generosity of God. We see the love of God. We see the kindness of God. Okay? We see the beauty of creation and we say, holy is he who created all this. Okay? It is for the same reason that those in quotes we call pagans will see a very huge tree, admire it, and say, blessed is he who created this. Mighty is he who did what? Who created this? Because that is their understanding of religion. And it is from what they see in the environment that they can do what? Connect with the Creator. So, nature should be cherished and treated with utmost respect and care, because through nature we see the glory of God. All things are interconnected, that is the second one, and flourish according to the law of reciprocity. All things are connected and flourished according to that law of reciprocity. Okay? We are all interconnected. What you give is what you do what? You get. When you harm nature, for example, it will in turn do the same to you. That is the reciprocal relationship that is being talked about in this principle. The oneness of humanity is a fundamental spiritual truth, spiritual and social truth, shaping our age. Now, oneness of humanity is another very important principle when we are talking about the environment and how we are going to care for it. If you know that we are one, for example, then you are going to avoid to do things for your own personal gain at the expense of what? Others. Okay? Let's take an example of a farmer in the village. Oidi ffe tuli balimi. Nja kwogera kuki? Ku balimi. Omulimi mukyale waffe yasalawo nti nze nja kutemawo emiti jona. I'm going to cut down all the trees that I have, the jackfruit trees, the guavas, the mangoes, and everything, and I plant my sugarcane or my what? My maize in a monoculture system. And then you will know that because you're planting one crop and the planting density is very, very high, then what you're going to plant requires a lot of nutrients for them to do what? To grow well. So you also go to the shops and buy the chemicals that you need, chemical fertilizers, the herbicides and pesticides, and use them in your what? In your garden. First of all, when cutting all the trees, you forgot that the mangoes that are there and the jackfruit and the guavas and everything are food for all the children in the village. Traditionally, that is how it was. A mango tree was for everyone. You couldn't just cut down a mango tree like that. So if you know your one, then you know the decisions you're going to make are going to affect your neighbor as well. If on my farm I have those ones, before I cut it down, I have to ask, so what will happen to my neighbor so and so who has a small piece of land, and the children usually come here to get some mangoes? What will happen to them? And they say, maybe that's not a good idea. I should look at something that is more environmentally friendly and also assist others, my neighbors as well. Again, we see what we talked about earlier. Caring for each other. And we also talked about this same idea of being interconnected. The idea of the challenge that we have of consumerism, and where everyone is simply thinking about how much they are going to earn, how much they are going to buy off the market, and how much they are going to make as individuals. And if we are believing in the oneness of humankind, then we are able to avoid all that. We see nature reflects the qualities and attributes of God. That is another very important principle. I talked about that a bit earlier. When you see a beautiful environment, then you see a beautiful creator. Not so? Yeah. When you see that the environment is very, very healthy and is very nice, it's caring for you, then you're thinking about the generous creator, the giver, the one who created all that. So that is how we have to be treating that. So the next one talks about the Bible scriptures describe nature as an emanation of the will of God. So I'll not talk about that one much. I don't know how much time I have. But I'll share this quotation that says, "Whatever I behold, I really discover that it maketh thee known unto me. And it remindeth me of thy signs, and of thy tokens, and of thy testimonies. By thy glory, every time I lift up mine eyes unto thy heaven, I call to mind thy highness and thy loftiness, and thine incomparable glory and greatness. And every time I turn my gaze to thine earth, I am made to recognize the evidences of thy power and the tokens of thy bounty. And when I behold the sea, I find that it speaketh of me, of thy mercy, and of thy potence and thy might, and of thy sovereignty and thy grandeur, and and at whatever time I contemplate the mountains, I'm led to discover the ensign of thy victory and the standards of thy omnipotence. Okay. So in this writing, you see a description of the awe and wonder that actually comes in our hearts when we behold the beauty of God's what? Creation. From the oceans, the mountains, the skies, the seas, everywhere you look, you see how majesty our Creator is. And this quotation will actually assist us, will remind us that whenever we go out there, we're looking at the environment, we know that this tells us about God. None of us has seen God. Okay? But how do we know about his existence? How? We read the sacred what? Writings. We listen to the preachers. Okay? And we also look at the world itself. And we see the many signs of the presence of God there. So with that kind of understanding, then we are naturally bent towards respecting our environment. So, then we have respect. From what you read up there, you naturally start to respect the environment. And you will know that, I can just read this one. This attitude of respect is further reinforced by the copious and metaphorical references to the natural world woven through the Baha'i scriptures. However, while nature is greatly valued and respected, it is not to be worshipped or adopted. Baha'is don't worship nature. Even when we respect nature and see how mighty our God is, we don't do what? Worship nature. We only look at it and say that, oh, he is very, very great, the one who created this what? Nature. And they say rather, it should serve the purpose given by God to the human race to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. In this regard, the Baha'i faith promotes a worldview that is neither biocentric nor, strictly speaking, anthropocentric, but rather theocentric, with the revelation of God at its center. Humankind as it strives to carry out the divine will in this, the physical realm is thus the trustee or steward of nature. Well, as human beings, we have our divine will. There is a divine will that is actually put there by God. And we strive to live according to the what? The divine will. But to nature, then we are the stewards of what? Nature. We are the keepers of what God did what? Gave to us. So, when you're thinking about the environment, for example, you know, people think about the environment usually come from two different perspectives. One perspective talks about the environment and doesn't care what happens to the people. Not so. So you consider that perspective is a biocentric that looks at nature, the plants, the animals, the water and the what, and say you are never going to touch anything in the environment. That environment has to come first. Living things have to come first. And if there is anything that you want to do in the environment that will somehow harm the natural environment but assist the population, the human population to advance, you say no, that cannot be done. And then there is the other one that is anthropocentric, simply talking about human populations, societies, human societies. That one says that, oh, nature is ours to use. It is a factor of production, so we can use it for anything that we want and we prosper. Whether we destroy it or not, it doesn't matter. Here we are looking at the theocentric what? Worldview, where the revelations of God are at the center. So we cannot talk about the environment, for example, and climate without looking at the great religions of the world. What do they teach about the environment? We have to put God at the center of our endeavors when we are talking about the environment. If we separate God from that, or put God at the center, then we are bound to have different teams, groups, and conflicting people. One about the environment strictly and calling themselves pure environmentalists, and the one about people. For us, we care about people, about development, and these are resources that we are going to use. So whatever happens after that, we don't care. So those are usually the opposing views when we come to spaces like these and other conferences where we're talking about the environment. The next one is about respect for animals. So how do we respect animals? Animals must be respected. We have the beasts of burden and others that live in the bush. They were also created by God and they're existing where they are. Father talked about the mosquito, and it was so interesting. He reminded me of what I usually say to my friends when we are studying something about ecosystems in some of the activities that we do. We talk about interconnectedness, and we see that in an ecosystem, every living organism has a role to play, including a mosquito. That first of all, the mosquito was created to come and take your blood. So that members of its own, that Anopheles mosquito, should also exist for generations and generations. So if we say that all mosquitoes will not bite us, and we kill all of them, so it means that they are going to become extinct. But we know the mosquitoes are food for the fish. Not so. For the frogs. Okay? And they also feed on very many other organisms. So if we remove them from the ecosystem, then we are going to shift to another dynamic equilibrium, which is not as rich as the one where we have the mosquito as a key player. So what do? Let us just sleep in mosquito and treated mosquito nets. Okay? For example, but when we are out, let us not kill them when they come to bite us. Then we talk about biodiversity. I think it is related to the former. I have a few minutes and time is running out. Then science, for example. How do we see science, for example, here in relation to the environment? I'll read this one. Given the fundamental unity between science and religion, the interconnectedness of the material and spiritual realms, it is not surprising that scientific pursuits are highly praised. The faculty of intellectual investigation into the secrets of creation is the most praiseworthy power of man, for through its employment and exercise, the betterment of the human race is accomplished, and the development of the virtues of mankind is made possible. However, the exercise of the faculty of investigation must be guided by spiritual principles, especially moderation and humility. Any agency, whatever, though it may be the instrument of mankind's greatest good, is capable of misuse. So, here in science, we are also talking about the advancements in science and technology, and we know that those have been one of the leading causes of our environmental challenges today, for example. But here, one of the fundamental principles of the Baha'i faith is the understanding that there must be unity between science and religion. Science here is understood as that faculty of intellectual investigation of the what? of the secrets of creation. And it is not the one that we usually categorize in form of the physical sciences and the social sciences. We are simply understanding this, that we are simply looking at it in terms of intellectual investigation of the secrets of creation. And we see the powers that science can give us. One thing is that it is God who created intellect, right? He created us and told us that you have the ability to think and to also procreate. And that is where science comes from. It is a blessing from God. Otherwise, we would have remained as monkeys in the bush. Not so. As the beasts that roam the earth. Because those ones don't have the intellect. They cannot think, they cannot reason like God created us. So it is God who gave us that power to study and understand his creation and make use of the many forces that he created. So we can harness the power of the wind and create electricity from that. We can invent many things using the powers of nature. But the caution here is that this strong tool of science, of intellectual investigation of reality, must be guided by spiritual what? Principles, especially one of moderation and humility. When those two are lacking, then such a beautiful tool can be used for a wrong purpose. And we see that has already happened, right? That has already happened. Like, for example, the path of development that we took, that we say that development is synonymous with urbanization and industrialization, is the one causing these issues of Chitezi, for example. If development is supposed to be defined in terms of building many houses everywhere, having skyscrapers everywhere, instead of people staying down there in our village in Budondo, they are all flocking to Kampala. Why is it like that? Because that is what development is. Okay? It means that idea of development is based on a wrong foundation and a faulty understanding. One that say here is materialistic in nature in a sense. So the next one talks about civilization. I think my time is almost up. I can end here, but you can read through and see many other ideas that are presented here, ideas that speak directly to the question that we're talking about. But I want to use maybe 1 or 2 minutes to go through this one of Baha'i ecology. It is almost a summary of what has been talked about here. In Baha'i ecology, we say the first one is one world. The earth is but one country, and mankind is citizens. These words of Baha'u'llah summarize the Baha'i sense of world citizenship and commitment to the stewardship of the earth. The oneness of humanity for Baha'is is the fundamental spiritual and social truth of this age. It implies a major reconstructing of the world's educational, social, agricultural, industrial, economic, legal, and political systems. Baha'is believe that restructuring will enable the emergence of a sustainable, just, and prosperous world civilization that will exist on this planet for 500,000 years. So Baha'is believe that the current civilization is going to run for about 500,000 years. Nature reflects God. I think we talked about that in the other document, that the world reflects the qualities and attributes of God. The world reflects the qualities and attributes of God and should therefore be greatly respected and cherished. Baha'i scriptures describe nature as an emanation of God's will. Then we talked about interconnectedness. All things are interconnected and flourish according to the law of reciprocity. This principle underlies the Baha'i understanding of the way the universe works and the responsibilities of humanity. Then about science and technology, it says, science and technology should help humanity to live in harmony with nature. Science should be guided by spiritual principles to preserve as much as possible the Earth's biodiversity and natural order in a way that ensures long-term sustainability. The spirituality-based civilization in which science and religion work in harmony will preserve the ecological balance of the earth, foster stability in human populations, and advance the material and spiritual well-being of all peoples and nations. Thank you so much. If I had like 2 hours, I would expound a little bit more on that, but because of time, I beg to stop here. Thank you so much.
Round of applause for Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you very much for sharing with us. I hope some of us are interested on issues concerning the Baha'i. I want to take this chance to welcome our brothers and sisters who have joined us. You found the discussion on the way, and it is warming up. And actually, we are reaching at the peak of Katandi Kautandi, yet it is coming to an end. Before I conclude and send us off for lunch, I would wish to give a chance to 2, not more than 2 people, to give us either comment, sharing, supplement, question.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for enlightenment about environment. I'd like to enlighten me about the biography of Baha'i. Thank you.
Okay, I can take the second question, then he will question or comment. Welcomed. Okay.
If I'm understanding it correctly, the biography of the Baha'i faith, or just an overview of what the Baha'i faith is. Okay? So the Baha'i faith is a world religion like others. And one thing that we believe in as Baha'is is the process of progressive revelation. You know, Baha'is believe that during certain times in the evolution of humankind, God sends messengers that are teaching people in the world to live according to the exigencies of that particular age that they are living in. So we believe that, for example, Buddha was sent by God, Krishna was sent by God, Nabi Muhammad was sent by God. We have, who is the father of all believers, Abraham, was sent by God. I talked about Krishna already. We believe that Nabi Muhammad was sent by God as a messenger. Jesus Christ was sent by God as a messenger. And we believe that Baha'u'llah was sent by God, because Baha'u'llah means the glory of God, as a messenger of today. And each one of them come with teachings that are assisting humankind to live according to the challenges they are facing at that time. God never leaves us alone. So, while the Christians say that Jesus was the last one, the Muslims will say that no, Nabi Muhammad was the last one, and Baha'is say that no, all those ones were sent by God. And Baha'u'llah is the one of today. But Baha'is don't say that Baha'u'llah is the last one. We say that after those years we have stated, 500,000 years, when the conditions of the world have changed, God will send another what? Because all those ones have been guiding people all along, okay? But usually, one of the challenges is that if one is, say for example, a Muslim, will acknowledge the presence of what? Jesus Christ, and also quote the scriptures. But the Christians will not ever think about what? Nabi Muhammad. And that is normal because they have not may be encountered, or through their own teachings they've been forced to recognize and maybe say that that was the very, very last one. Yeah, usually that is it. But for more information, because that was not the topic of today, we are simply talking about the teachings about the environment. Yeah, you can actually contact, I think it is on the paper that I gave you. Yeah. Down there you can have information about the Baha'i faith, and you can also visit the Baha'i temple in Chikaya for more information. Nze Mvira Idinda. So onaja ku Baha'i temple oidafuna information esingawo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that serves to inform all of us. Being that we're a little caught up with time, we don't want to spend much time. Somebody? Please let it be short.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is my brother. He's always teasing me. I'm going to speak as a mother. And this is a question. We are talking about how to preserve the environment. But do we love it? Do we? Because I can understand you cannot destroy something which you don't love. Stop laughing, Simon. If we had that love for the environment, I don't think we would have been here. So, this is homework as a mother. Go home, teach your kids how to love environment from day one. Like, those days we used to make toys out of the banana fibers. Are we still doing that, or we just go to the market and buy? We just buy, and that's plastic. So let us teach our kids how to love nature. I think that will help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear mother, for teaching us that. Dear colleagues, I would wish to make a few remarks in summary of our first session. We have not got a chance to, because of the timing, to hear from our brother in issues related to the Muslims, the Hindu, the Judaism, and I would wish to just give a hint. I'm not presenting, but giving a what? A hint. For our dear brothers and sisters who are the Hindus, they, first of all, some of us might have heard of the gentleman who was called Mahatma Gandhi. And in his writings, he once said that the country's development has to be in harmony with nature. The country's development has to be in harmony with nature, in that every member of the community has to participate to see that there is harmony in the what? In the community and in communion with nature. He went ahead to tell us that the earth has resources that meet everybody's need, but they are not there to meet everybody's greed. They are there to meet everybody's need, but not what? But not greed. And there is a very beautiful prayer that they share with us, which I want to read quickly. It goes, it was written by Ssebugwawo Veda, if that's the right pronunciation. And the prayer goes that, may the goddess waters be auspicious for us to drink. May they flow with blessings upon us. May the earth be pleasant and free of thorns as our place of rest. May she grant us a wide peace. May the divine waters which grant us blessings, may they sustain us vigor and energy for a great vision of delight. May we partake of that which is their most auspicious essence, as from loving mothers. So you can go on to look for that prayer or that saying which was given to us. And a hint on about the Judaism, what they would tell us about the topic environment, is that they teach us the importance of caring for the environment. And in this, for we must act as partners with God. Just take a simple example. If you're in a company and you're a partner, what would you do? I think you would do all that takes to make sure the company thrives, right? So that is the same way they teach us. There is a quote in the book of Exodus, like you can see that when God created the first human beings, God led them around the Garden of Eden and said, look at my works. See how beautiful they are. How excellent. Today, if God comes, let me use that word, and asks, is it still excellent and beautiful the way it was? The answer is within your heart and my heart. So let's look at the work. And just one hint on the environmental justice they tell us. They value so much what we call righteousness, justice, and then equity. Equity is different from equality. I hope we are at par with that. In that, we have to see that there is always, my dear brother Emmanuel has talked of the ecological imbalances which happen. If at all we don't come together to see that there is justice, then that imbalance will continue. So we have to fight to see that we have that balance within us. Dear brother Emmanuel, this is my last point. I would also wish to just supplement. You talked of our ecology being connected, according to the Baha'i. Some of us may not seem to be putting that to, should I say, make it come home. Because if we don't understand the reciprocity that is there, the mathematicians would say there's the numerator and the what? And the denominator. So if the two are not there, that won't be called reciprocity, because one has to make the other exist. For us in bioethics, we call it the symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic relationship in the sense that if today, like you gave that good example, I throw filth in Lake Victoria, believe it or not, at one point, that water is coming back for me to do what? To drink. So the question would be, am I taking safe water? Are you taking safe water? Are we taking safe water? So that is one quick example I would give. I want to give a chance to your colleague, the Baha'i. I think somebody said he was coming with you from the same place. You're the one? So I wish to just give you a minute, just a minute, please, and say something on the Baha'i, and then I tell us what is next. Just a minute, please.
Thank you very much again, everyone, and I'm glad I got the invitation to be here. I came here on behalf of the Baha'i Faith with my colleague Emmanuel. As far as the Baha'i Faith concerned, we believe in the equality of men and women, and as he explained, when it comes to the Baha'i Faith, we pay attention to the environment, and as I talked earlier, even when regarding the Baha'i Faith, we talk about individual responsibility. And as I told you earlier, when we focus on the environment, we have to take individual responsibility, starting from our environment, the community we come from, even the home. As they say, charity begins at home. And another question I wanted to emphasize on, when we talk about climate change and the environment, if we can take the same discussion into the schools, early on, I'm referring even like pre-primary. So when the next generation is growing up, we groom our own children and to try to change their mindset, as she said. When they grow up to be a certain age, the protecting the environment, it's part of them. So we don't always have to come and then emphasize it, but if we start early on and take baby steps from the grassroots level, the next generation that come after us, it will be part of them. to be able that, okay, we are supposed to protect the environment. And as he mentioned us, he talked about actions. We believe it is because we always talk, as long as we just talk and our deeds, our talk, they have to reflect. When we give speeches, the speeches we give, we have to reflect those in actions as well. So we don't just come here and talk, and when we go back, we do nothing. But I think most importantly, we have to start from the grassroots level, take the same conversation in the schools, and we start early on to groom the next generation to know the importance of protecting the environment. You're welcome, thank you.
I felt it would be unjust not to give you a chance to.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Dear colleagues, at this moment we are going to break off for a lunch break. We're sorry that it's coming at this time, but we hope that by 2:20 we'll be through with the lunch, and then we continue with the discussion. After lunch, we have a presentation from Laudato encyclical, and then we shall have an interactive session, and then we'll end with sharing best practices. And this will, of course, involve everybody to give us his or her view. So at this moment, we are going to go downstairs. Those of us, I hope all of us use the main gate. I hope so. So we're going to go down the church. After that big mango tree, we're going to plant a tree. After planting that tree, then we come back for lunch. And after lunch, we resume. So we hope this exercise takes us just less than 10 minutes. So Mr. Nicholas is leading us down. So may we please do that at this moment. Thank you very much. Can we go, please?